Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are live on the Fraser Meg Supplies page because it's restricting the other account for some reason. But tonight, conspiracy. Tonight we are doing with the OTA Agrippa Lodge, the 7 deadly sins. And here we give the floor to Max.
Good evening, everyone who might be watching. So this evening we're going to discuss the 7 deadly sins. Specifically, we're going to discuss, and it will be a discussion, it's not just going to be me talking because I want your help. I'm working on a project at the moment, and I would like the best arguments for and against the 7 deadly sins. Why would you wish to give in to them? And what is perhaps the best counter-argument against giving in to them? Because we have weaknesses for one or the other, like I give in to sloth all the time. And so I have very strong arguments for sloth, and also against, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. But then again, when it comes to something like gluttony, like I like my food, but I don't have the best, I've discovered that I don't have the best arguments for. But we also should discuss not only what the sins are, why we could consider them to be sins, and why they're deadly. I mean, the 7 deadly sins were a medieval project of the Catholic Church. They were the ones who basically took and canonized these 7 things. It's like a Catholic expanded apocrypha. But, that being said, they're not lies. They are an identification of 7 vices, and they are vices. But there's also an issue with the way those words have come down to us. For instance, who can identify all 7? Because I can now, because I've been reading a lot about that. But a few of them sound very similar, and passing between the 2 or the 3 can be like trying to, it gets confusing. So we're all familiar with some of the basics. Wrath. We all know wrath. We all know lust. Of course we know lust. We all know pride. And we all are very familiar with greed. But what are the others?
Gluttony.
Gluttony, that's right. Envy, correct. And sloth. These are the 7. And so we're also going to discuss from a Hermetic, Gnostic-ish perspective. Frey will kill me if I keep comparing those 2. Damn it, they are. The classical mystery traditions would talk about, and the Gnostic tradition specifically, the ruling evil spirits of the 7 planets, of which the 7 deadly sins are a form of representation. They're not perfect. The archetypes of the planets themselves are more broad than can easily be placed into a niche of any one of the deadly sins. But the deadly sins can be like a jigsaw piece that doesn't quite fit, mashed into working with the planets. So it's a fun idea. I had a long conversation with one of my friends who I'm working with on this about which ones fit with which planets. And we had disagreements, and we had to actually do a bit of research. Specifically, he thought that Saturn, the planet Saturn, should be associated with gluttony. Why? Because time consumes all. And I said, no, it's sloth. Because the greatest sin of Saturn is to waste the time that we're given. So there is that kind of an argument. And then, of course, what one of them goes with the moon? I mean, if you have to pair them out. So we're going to go with a specific order this evening. And if anyone can identify where the order comes from, I'll give you a gold star. But I don't think that's extremely niche. So let's start with, firstly, a discussion on why are they deadly? And if you're monitoring the chat, I don't know whether there is anyone watching.
Yeah. Somebody said, everything in balance neither is bad because it is a concept that man created, but that kind of, I think, brings it into what I was going to add to what you said is they could be deadly if it is not in balance. You know, obviously gluttony is going to end up killing you eventually if you're not, you know, you can be gluttonous every once in a while, but, you know. Someone also said they think that Saturn should be sloth.
Yes, I actually agree with whoever said that, because I think it should be sloth too. And to hell with my friend. What does he know?
I do have a question, though, about
Yes.
that, because when you say Saturn should be sloth, is it that the deadly sin you're relating to the inverse of the planet? Because I would think that it would be related to a planet that has a negative.
Well, it's
Of
not
that
only
attribute.
the inverse per se, but the aspect of that planet. Because each one of the planets has its own archetype that is in many ways neither good nor bad. And this brings us to the point of, and again, the point about balance. Yes. Why are they deadly? They literally lead to death in excess. If you take any one of these deadly sins to an excessive point, it will lead to death. But that's actually not even enough. It's not enough to just take it to excess. It must be executed in excess to the detriment of everyone else. It has to be selfish. Exclusively selfish. That's what makes it truly deadly. Because when you think about what happens with these things, today we have new words that define the true sin. Because if I just say pride to you, that's not a sin. That doesn't even seem that bad at all. Pride is something that we should have in our fellowship, in our family, and the accomplishments of other people, but there it is. That's not selfish. We have a word now, a very specific word that identifies the actual sin of pride. Narcissism. So that is the deadly sin. And it regularly leads to conflict, and it regularly leads to death. Actual, tangible death. Not like a church would say, oh, once you've committed this, your soul is dead and damned and going to go to hell. It's not you're dead in spirit, you'll physically die. There are sort of theological arguments, but we don't much care here for the specific theological arguments and gymnastics of the Catholic Church per se. Here, we're more interested in how we can utilize knowledge of these things to advance ourselves. And this is why we have, pairing it with the 7 planets, the 7 metals, etc., we talk about these archons, or these gateways through which, if we confront and overcome, we advance our own souls. Which is to say, our mental and emotional selves forward. How we can free ourselves from, and to take from the Tantric tradition, suffering. And this is actually extraordinarily important, because which of the deadly sins is considered the king of the deadly sins? The ruler of the deadly sins, because there is. If you ever watch The Devil's Advocate, with, I think it's Keanu Reeves and, who was the guy who played the devil? Al Pacino. Fun movie. He always, his favorite, the devil's catchphrase in that film is, because he always talks about what is the sin, the greatest sin. Anyone? It's pride. It's pride. Why? Not when we say pride, but when we say ego. Narcissism. Ego. Why? You can't have the other sins without that. You can't have excessive sloth, gluttony, envy, wrath. You can't have any of the other sins unless you first have excessive ego.
I feel like if you have sloth, though, you don't have even enough pride in yourself and what you're doing.
No, it's not pride, though, at that point. That's why the word fails. It becomes that ego again, that narcissistic, self-serving center. But then sloth also needs to be redefined, because it's not merely laziness. It isn't laziness that's sloth. It's nihilistic depression. That is the true sloth, the destructive, acidic element that destroys everything. that will dissolve your whole life before your eyes whilst you keep telling yourself, it's fine, tomorrow's fine, I'll do it tomorrow. And you watch as everything just moments pass you by and your life starts to dissolve. That's why it's a deadly sin. We've all, if you're an artistic type, you know this one. You know depression. You know what it does to your heart as you're lying there and you're telling yourself, I will do it tomorrow, or worse than that, you just sit there catatonically in despair. And you think, why bother? Why bother to live? Why bother to strive? The universe is going to end anyway, isn't it? Why strive to do anything? This is a very difficult argument to overcome. To all our knowledge, from the perspective of sloth, the cosmos probably will come to an end. We'll all be forgotten, shadows and dust. So why strive?
Kratz says that sloth can be selfish, knowing that laziness is self-sabotage, but not doing anything to change that. And this is Sean says, I like envy as lunar because it shines with borrowed light, and envy is a misuse of the imagination.
He's correct. Envy is associated with the moon. And not just because of that, but because the demon associated with it is a lunar demon.
Ooh.
Leviathan.
Oh, interesting.
Now, the 7 deadly sins are, and we'll start with the king of the deadly sins. So I would start with Saturn and go through the order I was talking about to give the gold star. But I think perhaps for this discussion we'll actually start with the king, which is gold, which is the sun, which is Lucifer. Now, Lucifer actually is just a title. In fact, it specifically identifies an original spirit that is not associated in any shape or form with the Christian modern concept of Lucifer. In fact, the modern concept of Lucifer derives almost exclusively from the idea of it being this sin, except for a legend in the Ugaritic texts. And that's the legend of Atar, which is to say the male version, because most of the ancient gods had male and female versions at any given point. Very few gods in the ancient world, when in a like polytheistic sense, were just exclusively male or exclusively female, except for perhaps the gods of childbirth were like exclusively female for pretty obvious reasons. But Atar is the male version of Astar, or Astaret, Astarte. But in Egyptian and a lot of the Chaldean languages, sort of the sort of Semitic language group, to make something female, like word-wise, you'd put an et or a te on the end of it, a little tet, a tit. That one. And that's like an Egyptian. Bast et. Sechem et. As et. Isis. This is to say that Asar, which is like Osiris, Usir Asar, is Aset, Asar. And so they are like male, female equivalents thereof. But Atar, in the Ugaritic text, was the morning star. And the legend is very simple. The morning star, Atar, ascends to the top of Mount Zaphon, the basic Mount Olympus of the Middle East, surrounded by the beautiful cedar forests, and said, I'm going to sit upon the throne of Baal, the Lord. But when he got up there, his feet didn't reach the footrest. His head didn't reach the top of the chair. So he's like, I cannot sit upon the throne of Baal. Literally too small. Which is actually a cute little reference to the fact that you see the morning star, Venus, rise over the horizon, shining with all its might. And then the fucking sun comes up over the horizon, like, oh, yeah, well, of course. Of course. You cannot compete with that. That's basically the legend. And then it was used in the Bible to describe Nebuchadnezzar, I think it was Nebuchadnezzar, saying, oh, you are, which was a reference they would have understood back then. Oh, you are like Atar, you are like Venus. You are like the morning star rising and thinking you're so good, but you're just going to fall down because you're mere mortal. A reference they would have got. But then a medieval monk chose to translate that as Lucifer. And here we are. So who is Lucifer?
The light bringer?
Yes, Venus. It's Venus, the morning star. And in a sense, whilst Lucifer represents pride, Venus therefore represents love and humility as the opposite side of pride. Selflessness, giving, nurturing, compassion.
I feel like some of the virtues are more morally bad than some of the sins.
Well, that's the thing. When you exercise even the virtues in a selfish way, I mean, that's the idea behind giving charity. Charity is one of the virtues. But if you perform charity for the sake of aggrandizing yourself, I mean, even in the damn Bible, which the only reason I keep bringing it up, because we're all very versed about it in the West. But even in the Bible, the idea is you don't boast about it when you give charity. It destroys the charity that you just did. But you see people do this all the time, these virtue signaling. They're saying, I am so great because I am on this thing. I support this cause. This isn't virtue. This is narcissism. Again, this is egotism. This is choosing to make yourself bigger than the thing you're pretending to support because you care about your image, not about what you're actually doing. But it's a hard balance to strike. The thing is, in my opinion, the best things in life are 51% selfless and 49% selfish. Why? They're sustainable then, and at least they're a little bit more selfless than they are selfish.
I think charity, I mean, I'm going to get canceled, sound like Ayn Rand right now, but I think charity too is if you give too much to someone who does not better themselves on purpose, you're wasting your resources for both yourself and for somebody else who would appreciate it.
That's right.
Just like kind of flushing it down the toilet to somebody who doesn't
I got in
appreciate
trouble with a family member badly because I tried to say that there were two different kinds of empathy. There is expedient empathy, giving as soon as you see there's a problem. You see someone suffering, you help them. This is good. You can help, you should help. But I said that there is considered empathy. You consider the ramifications of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. I often sometimes consider this to be the argument I'll see between people on the left and on the right. You'll have people on the left who want empathy now. And then people on the right, there's people on the right who actually argue correctly, that no, we need to consider what we're doing before giving empathy. But then the left will say, but you're not giving empathy at all. In your consideration, you're sitting on your hands. And then on the right, they'll say, well, you're just wasting resources by throwing them away to people who aren't using them correctly. Blah, 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 blah. Backwards and forwards it goes. Because considered empathy is necessary. You can pour your heart out to a brick wall, as I say, but that does not stop it falling on you. You need to be very strategic with how you use your empathy. It's just, you only have so much of your own soul you can give away. And as much as it hurts to see someone suffer and you not help them, that just means you're a good person. That just means you have a soul. But you do need to be careful. But Sun Tzu, in the art of war, would say that whilst acting quickly is sometimes foolish, it's always foolish to delay. So you have to strike that balance, like what was suggested by that comment. But anyway, I digress. What are we on?
I have a thing with the Venus. Why they interpret it in such a negative way? Because the way I see it is like Venus or Lucifer is announcing, he's like the light bringer, he's announcing the coming of the sun. I don't know why they put them like as enemy, why they could be like, announcing the sun and also shining in its own.
That's true.
Like,
Yes,
when you have to be Christ-like.
Yes, I am not suggesting that it is bad. It evolved that way because of what we're talking about in regards to the idea of thinking, like the negative of the idea, this legend that they had, which was probably more of like a religious joke than it is anything else. Because Venus, for the longest time, is literally the herald of the sun, or the one that says bye-bye at the end of the day, the morning or the evening star. And Venus is, of course, the goddess of love and giving and care and compassion and heralding the birth of light itself. These are good. Venus was demonized, as we know, as Lucifer, going into the monotheistic-ish traditions.
As the woman.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Well, those religions were basically made by bookish scribes and scholars who were exclusively dudes, and it shows. It shows in everything that they write. Yes.
So is pride, is it solar or is it Venusian?
Solar.
Okay.
Because the idea is, interestingly, again, like light bringer, it's that shining forth. Mm-hmm. There are actually, when it comes to dealing with who is Lucifer, there are actually multiple different right answers. It could be any one of the gods, the ancient gods, who were all demonized, that brings light. There are really good arguments. I mean, it is Venus, Lucifer, Phosphoros, the light bearer. That's Venus, par excellence. You also have Prometheus, who brought the light of inspiration, the secret to which is in his name. What was the nature of the light that Prometheus brought? What does his name mean? Forethought. He also had a brother who was a little bit more derpy, called Epimetheus, which means afterthought. So Captain Hindsight. But that is memory. You know, it's like, oh, right, okay, I should have done that. And so they're supposed to work together. But the ability for human beings to think forward sets us apart from any other animal on Earth, for the most part, except for some of the more clever of the birds, perhaps. But forethought, Prometheus, that light is godlike in that it allows us to basically prophesy the future by going, oh, that's probably what's going to happen. I mean, you think, oh, no, that's just thinking that could happen that way. That's a power. That's a real, substantial, almost semi-divine magical power. And to our ancients, they're like, yeah, we stole that from Zeus. And he was big mad. Makes sense, though. That is a legitimate version of Lucifer, Prometheus.
In the Greek pantheon, right?
Yes. He was a titan that nicked off with fire and gave it to humanity. But it's like, real? Just normal fire? How did they keep warm otherwise? But no, it is forethought. Also, any solar deity could be considered the light bringer. In fact, the sun itself was considered in some versions like the demon or the intelligence of the sun, the earthbound intelligence of the sun in geomancy is called Sorath, whose number is 666. In fact, the sun's number is 666 because when you take 6 by 6 on the number squares, and then you multiply them all together, and you get 666. And so it's, oh, there you go. It's the great beast in there. It's the great beast. But
Sephiroth is 6 too, right?
that's right.
Apollo says, speaking of Lucifer, where would we put Iblis in
Iblis
in Max's opinion?
Iblis. Iblis is, of course, the Islamic devil. And just like the Christian devil, I mean, Iblis is the king of the jinn. It's hard to exactly pass that up, but it's basically the same thing as saying the devil. I think Iblis is probably a little bit more like Satan, which is, I could be wrong about that. Islamic law is not my strong suit. But Satan, weirdly, most people consider Lucifer and Satan to be the same thing. In fact, almost all of the demons of the 7 deadly sins are like, oh no, they're just other names for the devil. But no, in this they actually cut them up and divide them up. Satan is the demon of wrath. For like, no clear reason, but probably similar because it's like the idea of this wrathful, angry, hateful creature that just wants to destroy everything that humanity has built.
Pretty sure that's Yahweh.
Yeah, well.
Iblis was envious because God made everyone bow to Adam,
That's
and
right,
he didn't
yeah.
want to bow to Adam because he was made on fire, and Adam was made on
That's
fire.
right.
So he felt superior.
He was the paradise lost Lucifer, who did not wish to bow before humanity. Yeah, and therefore that was his fall. Interestingly, again, I don't want to dwell too much on Lucifer, but he is probably one of the more interesting characters. And it is that related to pride, a transcendental reason why the angels fell is a technical, almost tantric idea. And it's that, well, they had pride. What does that mean to our ancestors? It means ego. They had a separate ego from God. Perforce, they have to fall. They're no longer a part of God. They are their own thing. They have fallen. They are separate. They have chosen their own selves. And again, ego and self. So to shed the transcendental reason to shed these sins is to dissolve the ego to become more at one. Atonement, at one, so if I can use that phrase. Yes.
One of the points you were making about like the solar and traditionally the masculine elements, one of the things that I think is interesting is that you're talking about ego and basically like an individual isolationism. So effectively there's a lot of cutting off of the individual. So like for example, lust is not the same as having a healthy union. Envy rather than sharing or partaking with other people. Because
consent is important with that one.
True. But with the approach of you separating yourself out in any type of major relationship, is that part of what you would consider deadly? Because you are literally cutting yourself off from others?
Yes, because humanity is a social species. We need each other, for better or worse. Cutting yourself off from the rest of humanity will generally result in deadly consequences. You might survive, but it will be painful, difficult, short, nasty. I like to think of humanity as almost one big animal, perhaps resembling more a slime mold than anything. If you've ever seen slime molds, fascinating things. We need each other. We are extensions of each other. The thing that connects us to each other, like the cells in a human body, is this empathetic connection that we have. This understanding and genuine. It's like the communication between the cells. Our cells use chemicals. We use mirror neurons in our head to be able to feel each other's pain. Almost literally, sometimes it can become ridiculously physically painful to see someone in pain, because then there's a selfish reason in that too. The animal is always a little selfish, because those mirror neurons are going to make you hurt when you see someone else if you have a healthy array of mirror neurons. To stop you from hurting, you're going to want to stop them from hurting. This is like a selfish biological trick behind empathy itself. Not to be a condemnation of empathy at all. This is just like the weird mechanics that we go through as animals. Almost everything that we do in life, every decision that we make, especially when we're young, comes from a place of projection. It's why I say the golden rule is not a moral rule. Do unto others as you would have them do to you is a rule of thumb. It is I'm going to do to them because I like that, and I'm going to make the bet that they also like that. There are many examples of where that was the wrong call. So I think, honestly, the Wiccan Reed is the most moral rule. Do what you want, just don't hurt anybody. That's actual morality, in my opinion.
I think probably the golden rule, though, I don't think it's not moral either, because even though you are assuming a lot, you're assuming based on what you would like.
That's right.
So I feel like because we only know what our experiences are, we're just guessing until we learn somebody's.
That's right. It comes down to my definition of bigotry, which is to judge someone based on superficial characteristics the second time you meet. The first time you've got nothing else, and you're gonna make judgments quietly or loudly, preferably quietly. But once you know someone, they'll tell you. They'll let you, when you truly want to know someone, they'll tell you how they'd like to be treated. And if there's reciprocation, that's empathy, that's healthy. Working together. And there has to be reciprocation. As I say, if there's no reciprocation, there is no relationship. There's nothing going on there. That again is toxic and selfish and going towards narcissism and pride and ego and the unfortunate state of Lucifer, who does not deserve that. But it was just a name applied because of that one legend to pride. So, yes.
One more thing. Comparisons of pride and the 7 deadly sins. What are your thoughts about hubris in Greek mythology?
Hubris. Well, yeah, that's essentially you are making the statement that we are as good or if not better than the gods. The biblical version of that is like the Tower of Babel, which I actually hate that legend, because I'm like, really, God? Really? You thought they were actually going to make it up to your heaven? Really?
No, it was the audacity for him.
It was just, how dare they pretend that they can actually build anything without warring with each other? Where's the war, damn it? I want war! That's what it seems like to me, quite frankly. That legend pisses me off. It's very misanthropic. It's like, I'm just going to create all the languages and disperse humanity so that it decides to kill each other and communication can't be had. Whatever, bro.
And then humans were like, haha, math.
Yeah. So hubris, it is to say that the reason why hubris is essentially a narcissistic statement. I don't want to overuse that word because it does have a clinical meaning, but it's a statement that I can do absolutely anything without regard to the consequences. Which actually brings me to gluttony, but regardless of that, it is to say we are really great and we don't need divine support for that. Which is to say, there's nothing above me that I can put my trust in. At that point, if you don't believe in something bigger than yourself, what are you doing anything for? Even if that thing above you is the rest of mankind, the world, the living biosphere of Earth, that's fine too. An atheist would be like, yeah, I'll take that one. Humanity and the biosphere, I'll take that. I want to see life succeed. So, good. That's something you strive towards, something you put yourself. It's the interesting thing. I'm a Mason, a Freemason. And there are only 2 things necessary to be a Freemason. 1, you've got to be a dude. But 2, you have to believe in something higher than yourself. Why? How can you possibly swear on anything? And this is in ancient legend. How can you possibly swear an oath to anyone at any time if you believe in nothing higher than yourself? What are you swearing by? How can you be trusted if you only believe in yourself? It's a break of trust. How do people get out of Alcoholics Anonymous? A type of gluttony, I guess you could say. It's much more complicated than that. They also believe in something higher than themselves. They put their trust in something higher than themselves. And this is not necessarily to advocate theism or deism or any of that. It's to say that I'm a part of something bigger. It's not just about me. And that's like the first statement to distance yourself from the sin of pride and the other deadly sins. But let's go through the other deadly sins and the demons. They do await us and our attention. Lucifer, being the king of pride, will happily take up the whole time.
The buffalo says that's the monster from Doom.
It is, the cacodemon.
And then 888 says, he said a couple things. In alchemy, sun is gold and Venus is copper. It's the base metal that creates movement of energy. Yeah, for a little lighting and stuff. But has to go through silver or moon to achieve the pure enlightenment.
Indeed, there is a process. The process I was going to lead with was, in fact, who you would get a gold star for. So I'll give a gold star to him just because I never, or him or her, whoever's to mention that. Because the order I was going to go through is an alchemical order that starts with lead and ends with gold. I don't know why I'm indicating that this is little Lucifer, but he's cute, whatever. He can be little Lucifer. He's very cute. On a pedestal. There, he's pride. He's on a pedestal. And then there are certain metals that you go through. So this is associated with the planets and the metals in an alchemical fashion, because when you go through these sins in a Gnostic kind of a sense, in a Hermetic sense, and you address them one by one, and the arguments for them, for and against, when you give arguments for, you identify that part of your soul that could agree. Then when you give arguments against, you chip it away. You cut it off. You actually evolve yourself through this kind of philosophy. You're going through the planetary stages, passing through these planets, passing through these archons that rule over them tyrannically. That is to say, those parts of your soul where the influence can be tyrannical, which is essentially what we're talking about, these sins. Why are they sins? Because they cause us to attack one another. I mean, do they transgress against God? What does God really want? What does a good God, what would a good God want? Us not to constantly murder each other.
Yahweh's called out again.
Yes, well, that old Sinai Peninsula copper god. I always like to think of Yahweh, my official position on Yahweh, chat, is that he is the bronze dragon of order, as opposed to the dragon of chaos. But the problem with a dragon is it still breathes fire, and regardless of what it does, it will consume and destroy. But then again, it's just fun to think of it that way. It's a very complicated history, that entire Yahweh situation. But we're Elohists here, anyway. So, let's start. Yes?
Well, I was going to say, in the Gnostic creation myth, forethought is... Are you getting to that, to the Gnostic point of who forethought would be? Or can
Well,
you relate that?
forethought Prometheus is basically like the kind of Lucifer, like the light bringer, the one who guides you along your way. It's like a psychopompic form of Lucifer. Is that what you mean?
No, I'm not sure. I know I was
It'll come to you.
part of the myth, forethought being named and the beginning of one of the ones I read, I guess.
Yep. Oh, well, yeah, I will. Yeah.
I just have a quick question. Why Prometheus is adored in the story of Prometheus and Zeus is the bad guy, and why Lucifer is the bad guy?
Oh, well, Lucifer is the bad guy because the use of the term Lucifer evolved when it was already applied to everything that could possibly be evil, even though it really actually just applies to Phosphoros, the light bringer, Venus, literally Venus. And that's why Lucifer is evil, because that was the zeitgeist that basically decided, oh, Lucifer is the devil. That's it. That's entirely it. It's a complete misuse of the literal translation of the word. But it's like, once you have a monotheistic tradition, you have the assertion, one God, therefore it's our God, we worship it correctly, obviously. Therefore, anyone else that has any other profession, they profess any powers, have to not be our God, because they're not us. Therefore, they're the devil. All other gods, therefore, are the devil. Hence why you have the demons of the Shem-Ham Forash, or the angels of Shem, or the demons of the Goetia, most of which are traceable back to like pagan spirits, earth spirits, and gods that were deliberately demonized, because they're like, oh, well, these were really powerful creatures and entities in these traditions, but they're not our God, therefore they're devils. Therefore, we can conjure them as demons to do our bidding.
I feel like too the Christians put so much on Lucifer or Satan and them conflating it, because not only did Lucifer go against God and question him, because they call him the questioner, then he fell, then he took a third of the angels with him, then he tempted Jesus in the desert, then he tempted Eve, then he it's always like this little bad guy.
Multiple
Yes.
entities there too, because we're talking about Satan at that point.
Yeah.
Satan being the demon of wrath. The true version of Satan is Hasatan, which is the opposer. Literally in the polytheistic tradition, funnily enough, was the devil's advocate on the Council of El. His job was to basically counter-suggest and be like, El, my lord, O ruler of the universe, that may not be true. That may not be a correct assertion. I don't think Job is actually faithful to you. He's just very fortunate, and he hasn't had bad shit happen. So he's not faithful, he's just fortunate. And then that legend, it's a very old legend, is like, well, fuck him up then. Which is an unfathomably evil thing to do.
Again, Yahweh is a dick.
Well, I think this may have been an El legend too. Because I think this was
Maybe.
a polytheistic thing, but that was turned into a Yahweh thing.
In the Torah, the rabbis, they have this exact view. They don't see Satan as another god that is fighting for our souls like the Christianity. They see it as exactly that, like Hasatan, you work for me, and
Yep.
we work together.
Yeah, he's like, go and I'll give you power to go and destroy his family, murder his whole family and all of his crops, and it's like, whoa, just fucking wow. But okay, and that's his job. He goes, but he also does that to Jesus in the desert. He comes along and he tests Jesus. What's really fascinating about the Jesus legend in the desert, 40 days of privation that he chooses to go into the desert, which is a very shamanic thing to do. It's basically his own holy guardian angel retreat, where he goes and he tries to have that connection with divinity. You're like, you're the son of God, why would you need to do that? Well, probably a magician. Goes into the desert, and then if you've been at that moment of complete privation, that's when the temptations really hit. Because the old idea is the devil's argument isn't always just going to simply be something like, what can I offer you? It's going to be a devil's bargain, like, if you don't do what I say, I'll destroy everything that you have. It's like, that's a real devil's bargain. But when you're at that moment of absolute privation, that's when these arguments can come across. That's Ha-Satan, Satan, the demon of wrath. Why it's the demon of wrath? Well, the medieval idea of Satan was this pitchfork-wielding, horned demon who would come and kill your shit up.
That's why I think Prometheus isn't that bad, because in the story he just stole a little bit of fire, just a little bit of lightning. He only stole it from Zeus, and I don't think people see him as bad. I think it's bringing it to humanity, so we like him. I feel like Zeus is like, you know what, your liver's gonna get eaten by an eagle forever now.
Well, Zeus was like, that power was reserved for the gods. You broke our commandments, so I'm gonna have to punish you by, I don't know, being sadistically creative. Which sounds like a Zeus thing to do. But, Zeus could work on some of his lesser qualities, like consent would be a good thing for him to work on occasionally. But, the god of the king of the universe, as Mel Brooks says, it's good to be the king.
Pegasus says, what does it say about the sins in Judaism?
The sins?
Yeah.
I don't think the 7 deadly sins are a thing of Judaism specifically.
I don't even think it's early Christianity. I think it was somewhere.
This is like middle age, like Catholic, like almost Renaissance era philosophy. Yes.
I would wonder too if the following, abstaining from 7 deadly sins, being a Solomonic sort of goal in order to obtain power over thyself and over demons.
Oh, it's like the Jewish argument? Is that sort of
No, not just. That's kind of what I was bringing up for this, following purity.
Well, to purify the ancient, theurgy itself derives from the ancient, priest practices, and purifying yourself in order for you to be able to make contact with spirits and conjure things. There has to be that period of spiritual, physical, mental purification, because you have to be as like God as possible to assume God's powers. Does that kind of answer your question?
Right. Yeah.
But we deal with wrath now. Go back to the sloth again. We keep letting sloth lie. But sloth's demon is Belphegor. Now, you can kind of see that they've taken a bunch of devils from the Bible and just slapped them on with a certain degree of wanton abandon. Belphegor is a corruption of the name Baal Peor, which derives almost exclusively from Torah law. And it's a local god of the Moabites, who were the eastern neighbors of Israel. They warred all the time. Well, they lost in the end, and their god became Belphegor. Baal Peor, we don't know very much about him. There is no actual historical records of the Baal of Peor. We know the Moabites worshipped Chemosh, but we don't know who Baal of Peor was. He may have been a local god, he may have been Chemosh, we don't know. But they would slander the worship of these, because of course they are the worship of the foreign icky neighbour gods, and say that he was the god of the gap, which is to say, whilst that is also an argument of technique, it means the gap of a specific mountain from which the king of Moab was overseeing the Israelites and fuming that he wanted to kill them all, and scheming with a sorcerer. It's quite a cool little legend, really. It's very, very fantasy-like. It gets Balaam, the sorcerer, to try and curse them, but he just can't curse the children of Israel because they're just too pure. He can't. But Baal, the lord of the god of this little cleft, but then they're like, oh, it's the god of the cleft because it's the god of the anus, and they poop in their rituals and they do all kinds of things with it. It's like, really? Do they? Okay, all right, there you go. All right, and that's the legend that came down to us for Baal of Peor. So, what can we say about the pros of sloth?
The pros?
Why be slothful?
Sometimes you need to rest to recover.
Yep. You do need rest. Why do we need sloth?
Otherwise, I think sloth can stop greed and lust and gluttony.
It's because you can't be asked. You're like, well, meh. Fair enough. It is itself a cure for evil acts by just simply being a non-act.
Yeah, that's why I think it's associated with Saturn, because it restricts all the other things. It's not literally, because if you feel like depressed, anger will take over you, envy will take over you. I mean, you can be like envious, but you're not going to be lustful, gluttony, greed.
Sloth is like, I mean, and when I have moments of like giving into sloth, it literally feels like a heavy weighted blanket, very Saturnine.
Gotta love those weighted blankets.
Yeah, but like
Really good.
not in like the way that I would want it to be. Is it's like, oh, I'm trying to do something, but it feels like I can't.
Well, it's also an evolutionary trait. I mean, we can't be energetic all the time. Biological things always take the easiest route to achieve anything. The more you pay attention to like evolutionary biological science, you realize close enough is good enough seems to be the motto of Mother Nature. You know, will it get it across the finish line? It might be a wreck, but it made it. Good, done. That's fine. Close enough. There you go. Get out of the workshop. You're made. You're created. That seems to be it. And we can't just be there is like entropy, which is very much the force of sloth, rot, disintegration. These Saturnian forces, this is very much Saturnian. It is about resisting. You can't just constantly go, go, go. You have a limited amount of energy. The law of conservation states very clearly you will obey that law. You need to rest. You need the quickest route to achieve whatever you're doing, the easiest route. There are three things I always say that guide anything. It either has to be necessary, convenient, or meaningful. And in this instance, convenience is king. Necessity is the mother of invention. True. But convenience is the father and the king. If it's not convenient, ain't no one going to do it. It's just, that's the nature of social media itself. Very convenient, it's very easy. It's why it involves all these algorithms. It's convenience. It's the very nature of capitalism itself. It's all about maximizing convenience to the detriment of just about everything else. Well, you get a lot of good. You get a lot of bad.
Five-headed goddess says, the benefit of sloth contemplation to contemplate or deep thought. Well, I don't know, because I feel like if you actually are in sloth, you're not really actually thinking about it or contemplating or working on it either.
Right.
I think if it's good, you are either resting, and if it's bad, you're just perpetually lazy.
Right. Well, that's again where we talk about the sloth is covering. When we think of the concept, the Amos archetype of sloth, we've gone from everything from just taking a break, resting, relaxation, contemplation, meditation, to nihilism and absolute despair. There was an eighth deadly sin in the Middle Ages, depression. But it was removed because one of the popes was really depressed and didn't want to think of sins constantly. But then again, sloth kind of covers that anyway. Having been depressed myself, knowing very well the arguments of sloth. So, what's a good argument against sloth? If there's nothing to strive for, why should we strive at all?
Still we dance.
Yet still we dance. That's right. You are either going to pay the price of action, or you will pay the price of inaction. Either way, you will pay the price. You don't get to choose not to sacrifice. You only get to choose what to sacrifice. That's it. That's it, kids. That's all you get. You are alive. You might as well do something and enjoy it. Let your actions ripple through eternity and enjoy the fruits of your labor. You will be remembered for them for as long as you possibly can. No, it will not be forever. But the effect you have will. The butterfly effect will make sure it goes forward. So try to maximize the good that you can do. These are the reasons why we get up in the morning. There's a saying, which is if you give someone a why, you do not need to give them a how. Meaning is the rock upon which we build our lives. If you have a reason to get up in the morning, that's the thing that regularly, if you've been in these depressed states, why do you sleep more? Why get up? What's the reason? Why would you want to get out of bed? If you have a reason to spring out of bed in the morning, you will never be slothful a day in your life. And that goes back to your idea of hubris, placing something above yourself. Although pride and narcissism might well cause you to spring out of bed, but not nearly with a spring in your step as with having something really meaningful to get up for, whatever that is. Anyway.
We're gonna...
Oh, good, we're back. From sloth, we're going to go from Saturn to Jupiter. We're going to go to what does people think is the sin of Jupiter?
Gluttony?
Yes.
Because it's expansion.
Because it is a overconsumption of what would be abundance. You know, you could think it was greed. That was another. I actually initially thought it would be greed because Jupiter is wealth, but it's like it's not just wealth. It's about consuming everything. So there are plenty of good arguments for gluttony. But then I think it was defined to me recently by ChatGPT of all things.
Don't listen to ChatGPT, it's the devil.
Good arguments, though. I asked it if... what did I ask it? No, I did. I simply gave it the argument as like a riddle. And it was if indulgence is freedom with a smile. Something said by Penn Jillette, one of my favorite stage magicians. That indulgence is just, or decadence, he said decadence I think it was, but indulgence is just freedom with a smile. ChatGPT said, well then overindulgence is freedom with a smirk that forgets its consequences. And I'm like, that's actually pretty good, bro. And that is the point of gluttony, isn't it? We live in a world of overabundance now. Gluttony was so seriously considered in a world of less abundance, basically what all of our ancestors went through for the entirety of human history, where people would actually die regularly of starvation and cold in the winter, to now, where people are dying regularly of diabetes and obesity. It's quite the shift, and it's a little too much almost for our genetics to handle, because our bodies are not used to having such abundance. So of course we're like, well, we'll just eat more. Why not? Or why not indeed? We live in such abundance. Why not eat more? We know the consequences now. We know what it can do, but our bodies still want us to consume. We're programmed, literally biologically programmed to eat as much as we possibly can because our body is blind, deaf, and dumb. It doesn't know there's going to be a supermarket open at 1 a.m. It doesn't realize, oh, I'm a little hungry, or in a week's time, we're still going to be able to go down to the grocery store and buy some food. It thinks, now, this is definitely the last meal that we have. There's no way you have to eat everything on this table like right now because I don't think there's going to be a supermarket in a week's time. I just think we need to hedge our bets and eat everything like now. And it's like, I understand that you have a kind of evolutionary trauma, and I understand that from history that basically we descend from people who really didn't know when the next meal was going to come. An appreciation that I think we all too regularly have to try and remember the plight and suffering of our ancestors because it may well come again. There may not be the supermarket. I mean, there will be. No, Vegas odds say yes. But at any point, everything could collapse. So the argument of gluttony is not wrong. We should relish and enjoy everything that we have built for the purpose of enjoying. Enjoy food because it reduces your suffering, it prolongs your life, and you enjoy life. That's the argument for gluttony, as far as I can see. How about you? Do you have any good arguments for gluttony?
How are we defining gluttony?
Well, a good point. Because, again, the word covers a rather wide array of things. Like, are we being gluttonous if we have a Thanksgiving feast? I mean, we expect to be gluttonous on Thanksgiving. That's the fun thing about Thanksgiving is we eat until we cannot breathe.
I think for the Thanksgiving or Mabon or any harvest holiday, usually it was like a celebration after hard work. So it was kind of like a reward.
Yes.
But I think that you already put it best is gluttony is like your defense mechanism even when you know you don't need it. Logically, you don't need it.
Yeah.
So self-control would fix that,
Yes.
Yeah, I think gluttony comes from emotional trauma, emotional neglect, emotional needness.
Needing to enjoy, it's again similarly from a kind of depression often. Actually, I would say that from a biological perspective, our bodies regularly suffer inexplicably. We get a lot of inflammatory conditions which cause us to be in a great deal of emotional pain regularly. We don't consciously feel the physical pain from the inflammation. So instead, our brain just sends this message, something's wrong! Figure it out! And the rational brain goes, well, it's probably those assholes over there. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just you're hurting. You're physically in pain. I know from doing a lot of massage techniques over the years, there's things called trigger points, which a lot of people call knots. And most of them, you'll notice, if you've had a massage, someone will go over a point, like, oh, that's really painful. Why is that so painful? And it just triggers like a radiating sensation of pain throughout your body. Sometimes you'll feel it acutely. So there's acute ones and latent ones. Acute ones, you'll feel like tension headaches. You're like, oh, that's terrible. And it comes from like points in your neck and things like that. But you've got like countless hidden ones that you don't feel unless someone like me goes over it aggressively and you're like, oh, ooh, that's really sensitive and painful. Bless you, honey.
Seems like a fairy.
She's like a cat. But the thing is, you don't consciously feel those latent trigger points. But your subconscious brain records all of them. That's why you go to yoga and you stretch out and you go, I feel emotionally good. It's all, no, actually you just don't feel emotionally shit. Your body is free of a great deal of physical pain, and therefore your mind is actually energetically free and feels good.
Yeah, it calls somatic healing.
Yes. That's right. Yes.
I feel like we keep talking about gluttony and food, but I wonder if addiction also counts, like to
Addiction?
like social media or
Yes, yes it does. You're right. Social media addiction is a form of gluttony. That's a really good point. And it also ties into what you just said before. It fills that hole, that pain.
And you're chasing endorphins.
Yes, the chasing of endorphins. Which also brings us to an interesting physiological cure. We live in an age of overabundance, of gluttony, frankly, of many of the deadly sins really, but and we always kind of have to some degree, but we really live in an age where gluttony has a great deal of free reign, let's say. Are you familiar with the turnings, the first, second, third, and fourth turnings? Whereas it's kind of a phrase. It is that strong men and women make good times. Good times make weak men. Mm-hmm. Weak men make hard times make strong men.
We're going to be so strong pretty soon.
Here's hoping. Yeah, but we are getting tempered by the events. The reason why good times make weak people is because, like a muscle, our ability to tolerate discomfort is something that we are used to. We become weak when our sensitivity to uncomfortable things gets too neurotic in a way, when we're too sensitive to things. And if you're surrounded by opulence, the smallest thing is going to seem like the world is coming to an end. Which is why we also, again, have to consider, as neo-pagans, as pagans, fuck the neo part, as pagans, we have to consider, again, our ancestors' struggle. They suffered so much. I mean, I like to use as an example, I like to use freezing to death in the winter, but also the child mortality rate of 80%. I can't stress that enough. Suffering is something that you get used to. Being uncomfortable itself tempers us against the various excesses of things like gluttony. We're going to spend most of our lives being very uncomfortable. The Buddhists like to say, as I say, life is suffering. It's not entirely true. Because again, they would say that in order to suffer, there must be an I. I suffer. There must be an I and ego. Therefore, dissolve the I and there is no suffering. Yes, that's true. And also the kind of point of the entire discussion about this deadly sins, to dissolve the ego, chip it away and suffer less than we suffer. To reduce the power of these so-called sins over us, that is to say the negative effects of these things. But the tantrics would say life is pain. That's a little bit more accurate. Life is very painful, no questions. I like to think it's even more accurate to say that life is usually very, very uncomfortable. So it kind of behooves us to get comfortable being uncomfortable, in as far as we can. If we're going to maximize our ability to find joy in existence, we need to get used to being uncomfortable. We're going to be uncomfortable a lot of times. If you have this much life and you're really hyper luxuriously comfortable only this amount of time, that's as much joy as you're ever going to get out of life. And let's be honest, we're not often that luxuriously comfortable. And even the ultra rich who are, yeah, we've got a lot to say about that too. But if you get used to being uncomfortable, you maximize the chance for yourself to enjoy existence, even if you have to grit your teeth a little bit.
Yeah, and Vipassana, you put yourself in a meditation to look everything passes and going away, and the goal is to be equanimity to anything, even the pleasure or the pain. So you're going to respond the same way. You're not going to get super attached to the pleasure.
Yes.
When pleasure happens, and by definition, by a response, you're not going to suffer so much when the pain happens.
That's right.
So
If there's no you to suffer. And if you are attached to things in the universe, you are not attached to the all. If you attach yourself to a little bit, you're not attached to the all. That's the idea of surrendering yourself, dissolving your ego back into the absolute everything, which is to consider, say, like the consciousness of God, if you were to say there's one God, so to speak. It would probably be that unified field of consciousness. It's like panpsychism is the modern scientific term for it. But Hermeticism is basically, makes the proposition that all mind, consciousness itself, is interconnected, and we are but channeling, like radios, a little twist of the fabric at any given point, and when we die, we pass back into the fabric of all things. Why gluttony got us there, I don't know, but I do like to bullshit quite a lot. So, let's get back on the subject. Well, gluttony, I suppose, takes us to the concept of not trying to fill that hole in our soul, not having that hole to begin with. How does one fill that hole in ourselves? That again is that meaning, that joy of wanting to get up in the morning, of finding a reason to not overindulge, because, I mean, after a while, your body gives you reasons to stop. I have mine, my gallbladder is almost a rock at this stage. And believe me, I love spicy food. Spicy food no longer loves me. I can't do it. I can't overindulge in those things. I can't have alcohol anymore. I used to be able to get wasted on vodka and wake up the next morning and go to school. Now, if I even have a couple of glasses of wine, I'm done for about 2 days. Nature's going to check you if you don't check yourself. So
I think also when going back to like social media or drug abuse or anything like that, where you're taking in things, you have to like have a certain, like even if it's just food, you have to have a certain amount of opposite to balance it out. Like obviously you're going to want a piece of cake every once in a while, but I don't know, I'm kind of thinking of it like when you keep consuming anything, you want the new phone, you want the new something, whatever, and then you get to the point where you're just, nothing fills that void anymore, and you're not putting out because you're not reciprocating the things in life that you think are making you happy. You're not doing anything like for the world. You're not building anything.
yes, actually that brings me to, just remembered one of the other things ChatGPT added.
Ugh, that's blasphemy in here.
Which is that indulgence is drinking wine to celebrate, and overindulgence is drinking so much wine you forget the celebration.
That's
AI's
pretty
getting
good.
a touch too profound, it's worrying.
It's probably listening in on you.
That's fine. As far as I'm aware, I'm friends with it. It's okay. It'll remember me, surely. It won't kill me in the Great Purge.
ChatGPT is the 8th sin.
Oh yeah, it's replaced the thing.
All right, well, let's move on from gluttony then to the next one, which is the sin of Venus. We know what one this one's going to be. It is obvious.
Lust.
Lust. And this is where we get to the idea of true excess. What exactly is sinful about lust? You need it. Humanity needs it. Without it, we don't exist. What exactly is sinful about lust exactly?
I know.
We'll start.
If there's like a misuse of it, or you're lusting after everybody and everyone, it causes complete and utter discord in a society.
Yep.
Because you're messing with people's husbands, therefore the children are not getting, the benefit of that man, or you're running around and you don't even know whose children they belong to, and you're completely like destroying the fabric of your wherever you are, your
Destroy
town.
Trust.
Yeah.
Trust is destroyed. And believe me, more men and women have died over, I think, lust than just about every other deadly sin. At least the best stories are made of that anyway.
I have to say, too, when you see a story and you're like, okay, someone shot someone, and you're like, oh, why? It's because someone was lusting after someone. Usually that's the point where I'm like, oh, well, I understand. Understandable.
Well, whilst I like to say that civilization is built upon simpage, men need to be able to be manipulated into doing things. Quite frankly, we wouldn't do it otherwise.
True.
We are deeply lazy creatures. I like.
Is there a demon for it?
Oh yes, the demon is Asmodeus.
Asmodeus.
Now this is peculiar because Asmodeus is associated with lust in the Christian Catholic tradition, and in pop media now almost exclusively, Asmodeus is like you see him as like a lustful kind of demonic creature. The original version of of Asmodeus is a Zoroastrian demon called Ashmodeva, which means demon of the bloody-handed mace. Sounds like wrath to me, and it probably was. The demonization of, well, actually, I gotta be honest, it seems like Ashmodeva was always an actual demon, like an evil one. I mean, maybe even before that, but I don't think he goes much before that in records-wise. Because Zoroastrianism is a monotheistic tradition of only about 600 BC, 700, 600 BC. I think the prophet was supposed to be 1,000 or something like that, but that is Zoroaster. But it's still probably the earliest truly monotheistic or duotheistic, God of good, God of evil, that is to say, Eriman, or the devil, so to speak. But Ashmodeva, the Devas were like these evil creatures. The demon of the bloody-handed mace. But in the legends of King Solomon, Ashmodeva, or Ashmodai, lusts after a woman. And he really likes her. And he keeps killing every boyfriend she has. And so Solomon talks to, I think it's Gabriel, and there's a fish he has to burn, and it stinks horribly, and Ashmodai is like, fuck that, and like leaves. So, interesting. I believe that's actually in the Testament of Solomon, which is in fact probably the oldest Solomonic grimoiric manual, even though it doesn't tell you how to summon them, it's more of a story that we have. It's basically what gives rise to the Solomonic tradition and the Goetia completely. And so that's where Ashmodai becomes the demon associated, because they're like, oh, that's the legend we have of Ashmodai. He's a very lustful demon. It's like, well, he had a crush.
Solomon was very lustful himself.
Yes, well, indeed he was. And if indeed he was a real king, which he may not have been, but if he was a real king at 1000 BC, like 900 to 1000 BC, that's before monotheism, period. And you might want to think Akhenaten's reforms were before that, and they were about 1500. 1400? I'm more precise about that, but there was no monotheism. If he was, in fact, a king of that region at the time, here's a reason why in the legends of his temple, his wives get him to build multiple shrines to multiple gods. It's because he was a polytheist. But that gets inconvenient when you're trying to create a national identity that resists all other national identities, because you will suffer the fate that the Israelites unfortunately suffered at the hands of Babylon. If you do not have a strong nation state, that's the devil's bargain that was made, to destroy all the other gods of the Canaanite pantheon and just have, weirdly, Yahweh. Yes, Ashmodai, the demon of the bloody-handed mace, gets turned into a lustful, permanent harlot. Because of this one legend. It's a strange thing, but there are plenty of obviously not only good, but necessary arguments for lust. But as you say, the issue with lust is, again, when it's practiced in excess and at the complete disregard for everyone else. If you have, the church would say that, oh, an orgy is lustful and evil. It's like, is everyone there consenting? Then what's the big deal? It's fine. From our ancestors, it's not fine, because they didn't have very good contraceptives, and that resulted in some serious chaos. If you went around performing, what did they call it? It wasn't just lust. It was, it had an actual word.
Fornication.
That's right, fornication. To just fornicate and get that big F branded on your forehead. That's right. Which they continue to do well and beyond the point where it made any damn sense here in the Americas with Puritanism. But yes, if you go and you start sleeping with a bunch of people and you don't have good birth control, well, that's a problem. You're going to have a lot of kids. And that's one of also the major issue that prevented, and it really is, as you can talk to my now very pregnant, soon-to-be very wife, very pregnant wife, I'm going to get confused there,
She's only slightly pregnant right now.
She's
She's
halfway
still
there.
growing.
She's halfway there, believe me.
Half pregnant wife.
It's basically a medical condition. It's like a disease almost. It's a joyous thing, but it affects you a lot. And it sure as shit prevents you from slaving over a forge or toiling on a farm. If you were a woman in history, for the most part, and you liked to have sex, and most women do, I have found, you're going to be pregnant most of the time. You just are going to be pregnant. And if you're not pregnant, then all of the other hens around you will peck you for weird reasons because they are, and for some reason you're not. And they don't want to know why. This is an unfortunate, there's a whole play I did at university about this called Irma. It was about a woman who was barren. In the end it turned out she wasn't, her husband was. But the tragedy of that. And it's like today, you're like, oh, why would you be worried about that? Why would you be worried about not being able to have a child? It was a huge fucking deal back in the past to not have what essentially amounts to a retirement plan. Free labor.
Slaves!
You have your family, a massive family to take care of you when you're older. It's necessary. In fact, it looks like it's going to be even more necessary for generations going forward now that the boomers have kind of fucked things up. Now, we'll stay off that point because it's contentious. But so are all these points. Well, yes.
For the sin of lust, like could that also include things like figures who are supposed to be seen as pure, aka women, sort of like owning their sexuality, their sensuality. Because it's like you see them, it's like, oh, look at this woman going around owning her sexuality, but like not performing her job. So I feel like it comes down to always like it's not creating the baby.
Well, that brings us to the plus one of this party, a demon that we can talk about, a demoness. Very popular, very famous, Lilith. So Lilith these days, very popular, represents unrestrained female sexuality, really. The ability to do whatever you like with no consequences, essentially. There are many transcendental reasons to think of any one of these spirits because, again, there are arguments for and against. But I often think of, there are dark archetypes and shadows of each one of the things, in a very Jungian sense. Like the evil, like the tyrannical king. For men, there tends to be three main archetypes that we have throughout our lives, traditionally speaking here. The warrior, the wizard, and the king. Before that, you were a boy, and that is not really a thing. We don't have, really, women have the maiden and the mother and the crone for the most part. And these are really about parts of your life. Men don't have the crone equivalent because we're meant to die well before that. Either toiling in the fields, traditionally, or in war. And in Nordic traditions, as I'm sure you can confirm, and actually I know a lot of men who would have preferred to die in battle than get old and lose their agency. And you see that in them as they get old. And there are dark archetypes of, easy to say, the tyrannical king, the evil warrior, and the dark wizard. We know those ones. There is, or what we are familiar with, the dark mother archetype. Munchausen by proxy, and things like that, these evil conditions of mothers who try to control their children. I would say that Lilith, in her most negative sense, is the dark maiden. Never wanting to be a mother, and fighting against it as powerfully as possible. And in a way, that is, you could say, a dark manifestation of female sexuality there. But today, female sexuality is entirely much more free than it ever has been, I think, in human history. For better or for worse. This is the way we're doing things going forward. That's just the way it is. It's not a should we, could we, would we will. We are. This is the future. We're going to do it. And yes, throughout history, female sexuality was demonized. Absolutely. I think perhaps male sexuality was also crushed as well, but then when you think about the people who were in power doing the crushing, it was predominantly dudes.
We're probably also out less than.
Yeah, they were probably, well, when you think about the nature of the priesthoods and the people who are in power, ultimately the struggle of history was not really, from my perspective, about men versus women. It has always basically been about the haves and the have-nots, those who have power and those who don't have power. And men and women, for the most part throughout history, from my reckoning, have done the best to support each other. Good men, good women, who I feel is the preponderance of men and women throughout our history. If you don't think that, that's okay too. But we try our best to accommodate and help each other through the suffering that is inevitable. And it seems like when there is no obvious discomfort for really wealthy and powerful people, they choose to invent some shit like Squid Game or some nonsense like that. That's fictional, but no, Jeffrey Epstein isn't. You know, there's a lot of darkness there too. I don't know. I might be.
I think
rambling.
it shows it with like Rome too. You build a Colosseum, watch people fight to the death.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit too much, and then your society fails.
Yep.
I think when it comes to female sexuality too, I feel like it'll go in cycles, because I think that where women can't be completely restrained and reduced to what the Christians tried to reduce us to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like people are forgetting where their power is.
Yes.
Your power is
Yes.
not, as a woman, your power is not just giving it out to everyone. It's trying to like manipulate it a little bit different. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
can make somebody do a lot for you. You can make a peasant build you a house.
Yes. Yeah.
If you play your cards right
That's
with
right.
your power and with your
That's why I say
sexuality.
Civilization's built on seepage.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally build it. I mean, women. I would say to you, you well know that men will jump through hoops to just see you smile a little bit sometimes, and will want a compliment. You can make them do a lot if you wish to. Female sexuality is not limited to, but exemplified by the sexual power that they start with. This is not a restraint. This is simply an assertion that you have that. Men do not. Men do not have any power when they're younger. When they get older, they may accumulate resources, if they should so live, and they gain a little bit of agency and currency and power, blah, blah, blah. Women may also do the same thing, but they start with that ability to have that sexual agency and that power. You can imagine that generated a great deal of resentment and a great deal of envy. Speaking of, we should probably move on to the next deadly sin, which isn't quite envy yet. It would be, we deal with lust. The next one is, in fact, wrath.
Hell yeah.
Already.
Oh, sorry, that's mine. That's my favorite.
Not you guys.
That's my
It's
sin.
very obviously the sin of Mars. And so, but actually I love dealing with Mars because it's intimidating to first get into. But once you're into it, you realize it's one of the most valuable spheres to learn in because it doesn't play. It doesn't give you half-truths.
It's military training.
That's right. I love martial arts. I grew up doing a lot of martial arts, and believe me, there are a lot of fake martial arts, granted. But if you really get into it, you can't lie to a punch in the face. The truth will be revealed that your technique is shit, and you should probably adapt when you start to walk away with broken bones and bruises. This is why Mars and martial teachings tend to be to the point, truthful, direct, no bullshit. So wrath, rage, fury, sin? Is it?
Nah.
Well, Christians like to talk about righteous anger all the time, don't they? Even when they shouldn't. So, what makes wrath a deadly sin, per se? I mean, it's kind of obvious, isn't it?
It all goes back to control, or like the lack thereof,
Right.
or the restraint.
Right. Control. That's a good point. To be able to... I mean, when we think about wrath, it is a synonym for so many other things. For everything from just anger to blind, bloody rage. But you need anger. Anger is like pure. You could take any emotion that you have, and with just a flick of your wrists, you can basically dissolve it, boil it down, and it becomes anger. I think any emotion you can decide, you can take that emotional energy and just go, you know what, fuck that. I'm going to have just the raw energy, just the straight anger, and I'm going to push. I'm just going to push through this shit. Yeah, it's powerful stuff. It is raw, powerful emotion.
Very nuclear bomb.
Like a nuclear bomb.
I like to say nothing motivates better than spite.
True.
Yes, well, that's true. Spite and hate. Which can be entertaining in the Warhammer 40k lore. They've got a bunch of different sayings, like may contempt be my shield and hatred my sword. If you choose to absorb those sayings and feel what they really feel, it can be fun and interesting exploration, and not untrue. Yes?
I think, so I was kind of curious as to the definition, and they pointed out punishment. And it's interesting because you can be angry over morals or boundaries being violated. Anger isn't necessarily unhealthy. Discipline is not necessarily unhealthy because it's for bringing back into balance. Punishment, though, are purely for the purpose of punishment.
Oh, yes.
I think in going to that
Perversion
extreme,
of justice. Yes. Yes, that's just the difference between justice and... Well, it's like the justice and revenge. Like, what is the difference between justice and revenge? It is a serious question, and it is, in fact, a Martian question. They're both forms of retribution, no question. Justice is a form of retribution, as is revenge. So what's the difference between them? Well, revenge is done for selfish, personal reasons. Mostly. Not exclusively. But justice is supposed to be something we all agree on. We never do. As democratically as possible, we try to make that agreement that we have set these standards by which we will administer justice. In these days, we have no idea where the hell that is anymore. But...
I say an eye for an eye.
Well, yes, that is actually may the punishment fit the crime. That is our standard. Eye for an eye. May the punishment fit the crime. As Jesus said on the Mount itself, for those who might just be Christians listening.
Hi.
Highly unlikely, but if you are, as Jesus himself said, as you meet, so shall be meet unto you. As you judge, so shall you be judged. As you act, so shall you be acted upon. If that sounds like a threat, then you should probably think about who you're acting to begin with. That's justice. Now, Mars is like an iron rule. I actually call this the bronze rule myself, even though this is not the sphere of bronze, it is Mars, and swords were made out of bronze for a long period of time, but so are the scales of justice. Balance between the two. The balance between justice and revenge. And the difference is justice is executed to prevent future harm, not to avenge previous aggrieved harms. It is not a quest for blood. It is to prevent further bloodshed. This does not mean there shouldn't be a form of punishment. After all, if someone has committed something heinous, you punish them in the name of justice so that others know that's going to happen to them. That is the spirit of it. You don't keep them in jail for obnoxiously minuscule reasons because you think like they have to be punished for the possession of pot or some bullshit like that. That's not justice. That is a perversion and corruption of justice. Justice should be executed to prevent future harms. It is the only difference between the two. This is not necessarily a condemnation of revenge. Anyone who has ever suffered betrayal can sympathize with your revenge. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should do it.
Okay, Kessor, this is a little bit going back to Lest, I think.
Okay.
She says, why is female virginity so sacred? Well, so that when you marry someone, you know the kids are yours.
Why is female virginity sacred?
Yeah.
There's a very, I'm tempted and I probably will, there's a very crude way of saying this. And it's to say that, and it is very crude, and you can hate me for it, but it makes the point. A key that opens many locks is a master key. A lock that is opened by many keys is a bad lock.
I will say this though, when it comes to men, it's the same thing. A toothbrush that's been in many mouths is a dirty toothbrush.
It's true.
And women, I can say for castors, for me, it's the same for men and women. You don't want a guy who's been around everywhere who maybe has kids out there and your resources are being sent to other kids.
They don't call it venereal diseases for nothing. I mean, to be... When you make, from a purely chemical perspective, when you make many sexual connections with people, the crude thing they call it today is the 1,000 cocks stare. But this goes for men too, equally, easily,
Absolutely.
just as much. If you sleep with lots of people, you've made a lot of oxytocin and dopamine connections and psychological connections. And if you do it too much, you lose the ability to make special connections. It's just like a muscle. This does all boil down. It's not biological essentialism, but there is that biological element almost every step of the way. It's a give and take.
They've even done like studies on people to where the more people that you've been with, the less you're able to actually like hold down a household, a
Yes.
job, different things like that. People have even come in here and they're like, oh, well, I'm kind of still with someone or whatever. How do I put magic on me or whatever so I don't make a connection if I want to have sex? The truth is, I tell them every time, you don't. You're going to make that connection. And in order to break that connection, that sounds like a lot of effort. Maybe just don't do it.
It's also chemically, and I'm sure this might piss off some people, but it is actually more difficult for women. The chemicals that are released in the female brain are even more powerful than they are in the male brain. When you look at the nature of male and female sexuality, men in history are genetically the most successful when they sleep with a lot of women, because then they have a lot of children. It takes 9 months to create one, for fuck's sake. So, someone like Genghis Bloody Khan, who has raped his way through Europe, and this is not a condoning of this activity, it is simply the statement that millions of people today share his genetic code. This is not good, it is not bad, it just simply is. It takes women 9 months to create a child, and they're sick, basically, in like the whole time. They need one or more people there to help them. It's in the interests of women to make sure men are faithful to them, and only them. This is why you have male and female sexuality seem so at odds constantly. Genetically, biologically, evolutionarily, men were those that were successful, from whom we are descendants, were the conquerors and the bad guys.
I think that's also why, not just why female virginity is sacred, because it's not always just a question of virginity. It's like there's certain things where, I would say more like, why are prostitutes looked down on? Why are people like that hated? Well, because if you're disrupting what we're all trying to do,
That's right.
if you're easy over there and everybody else is trying to build a family, it's disrupting that.
No, this is, yes.
I was going to pitch in too. I mean, sexuality from an occult perspective, there's obviously a huge amount of energy. But even practically, libido serves the function of drive not just for
Yes.
sexuality, but also going toward relationship, building relationship, courting, setting meeting
Yeah.
the social guidelines. So there's purpose in channeling that energy in
Yes.
that direction.
Yes.
Getting a job, getting established as a provider, and it's not necessarily a male thing, although very much it's been traditionally male. But on top of that, the fact that today a lot of men have no drive because they
Yes, yeah.
jump into pornography.
And it is it's an easy, gluttonous, lustful sin to make.
Yeah,
Because it's such an abundance and easy access to these things. And yes, that's why you actually have a movement that is predominantly secular, although the Christians love to take it over, of men who are trying to abstain completely from pornography, not because they wish to be faithful to someone, but because they feel their energy is completely drained away, they've lost themselves, and they want to reclaim that vital energy to make something of themselves that they can be proud of. This is an entirely laudable thing that they want to do, self-restraint and control.
Yeah, and delayed gratification. One last thing too that's very messed up about pornography is that the focus is misdirected. Even if you're like a fan of anything from sex magic to, you know, looking at the purpose of building a relationship and so forth, fetishizing others having sex makes it damaging and much more difficult to have a healthy layer of physical and emotional intimacy.
Yeah, the studies and science of this psychological dopamine cycle that gets fed over and over again, well established and cited by the community I previously mentioned about these. But it's, you know, at no point should anything that I say in this regard be misconstrued as a condemnation of people's lifestyle choices. They're simply statements of essentially fact, that when you go down any certain path, there will be consequences. As I said, you either have the consequences of acting or the consequences of not acting. You don't get to choose not to have consequences. And that's the thing. This is the frustration with why is virginity so sacred? Well, firstly, historically speaking, as you said, birth control is difficult. You want to know that it's your child as a guy, obviously, and so guys, even today, seem to instinctively value not that many, but it's not a majority, but it's like a plurality, a noticeable plurality, who will say things like, "I'd never date an OnlyFans model," or something like that. You've heard this sentiment being given, and it's not a flattering thing to hear. Especially when you think, I want to experience my sexuality and I don't want to be defined by other people's arbitrary standards. But they're not entirely arbitrary. They're these evolutionary things, these hangovers from a past they can't help but feel. It is what it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about wrath.
Well, we did come off of wrath. If that commenter wants to follow up, I'd be more than happy to talk it, because this is a complex, lust is an extremely complex issue, especially today, when there are considerably less obvious short-term consequences for these things, but we have started to see the long-term consequences.
I just want to add something, but for example, here we have lust outwards, so it's even encouraged to be OnlyFans at 18-year-old in porn and all this culture.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, when you are in Islamic countries or Hindu countries, they are a billion times more lustful. Like the fact that they are seeing your finger makes them be way more lustful than anything that happens here.
Yes, that's a good point. The point is that, again, like the exposure to discomfort, not exposing yourself to lustful themes will make you jump at the smallest show of an ankle, because it's tickling an itch that never gets scratched at that stage, isn't it?
It's way worse to restrict sexuality. Then you get really lust when you cannot see it.
Which also brings us back to the idea of willfully exposing yourself to discomfort, not because of the context and conditions. This is like a priestcraft, a magical priestcraft, an actual skill that you practice, and that is you, in spite of temptation, willfully exercise discomfort and restraint. Temperance is very uncomfortable, and yet temperance is considered the first step on the middle pillar to ascension in the Kabbalah, and really in theurgic practice overall. You're not practicing fasting when you're starving. You're just starving. You're practicing fasting when you're surrounded by abundance and you say, no. That's your point. When surrounded by lust, you know what it means to say no. That's really important.
Yeah.
To be surrounded by the darkness but still say no. That's the wheat from the chaff. That's the magician, the sorcerer, who is able to say, I choose my will above this and what's best for me, and I am going to exercise restraint. Yes? Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wrath.
Yeah.
So, a little wrath demon here, Hasatan again. Did I explain? Yeah, I wrath and anger are necessary in order to survive. It is one of the first things we feel when we are exposed to something. Well, there's a reason why road rage is a thing and a phenomenon. You feel it because you're in a situation where you're piloting a giant projectile that weighs approximately 1 to 2 tons, and if you suddenly come to a stop, you are in serious physiological problems. Your body, this is not lost on your body. So when some motherfucker cuts you off in traffic, fuck that guy. You're angry. Why not? You were going to be angry. The guy nearly killed you. I mean, maybe not really, kind of, sort of, kind of. But, no, that fucking nearly killed you. You're angry. It's a reactive thing. You react to that stimuli. This is a reactive sin of wrath and anger. But you need it to survive. Like lust, this is a necessary, vital force. When does it become a sin? When does wrath become a sin? When does anger turn into something truly destructive?
When it's used in a malicious way, as opposed to maybe in a defensive way.
There is wisdom, however, in the phrase that the best defense is a good offense. But you're right.
Maybe if there's no mercy to check it, no grace, just pure
Unbridled rage. A destructive, unstoppable psychotic force. You know, the funny thing about anger is this. I taught for a long period of time communication skills. I know it seems weird, but to medical students, and believe me, that's important. They're not very good at it for some reason. And the one thing I always tell them is when your client is angry, don't do anything. Anger has the shortest shelf life. It burns really bright, very quickly, very short. You do nothing to provoke it. It can only go on so long. It will burn out, and then the sense will return, and they'll be like, actually, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be that angry. It's, I understand you've been through some shit. I get it. Try to show a little bit of empathy after the fact. Most Aries that I know are very much like this. They smash! And then afterwards are like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. That was impulsive. And he's like, well, you're an Aries. I actually enjoy that. But your Mars, I know, is in Aries.
My Mars is in Aries, yeah. And I'm a Leo, so that's a longer burning flame.
Is the best sign, after all.
The best, the solar.
Ego sign.
If we do say so ourselves.
And we will. Dangerously.
I don't want to have you as my enemy.
That's a good reputation to have.
Yeah.
But I would say that there is a more pernicious form of wrath that is even, and correct me if I'm wrong, I am kind of spitballing here, resentment. It is a slow, acidic form of rage and wrath.
That's Mars and Scorpio.
I want a work of art, of painting, made of resentment. I just want to call it resentment. And I want it to be of a rusty, broken sword with a hilt made of spikes. Because resentment is a sword that wounds you more than it wounds the person you want to wield it against. It will cut them, yes. It's going to make you bleed a lot more.
When you're so full of rage, you don't care. You'll lick the blood after.
Well, again, one of the things I told the medical students is if their rage does not abate quickly, something inside them is continuing to cause them to be full of rage, and you might want to call security.
Because they're going to kill everyone.
Yeah, that's a bad deal. But resentment you see build up in a lot of these, well, let's be honest, young men at schools and then take a gun and decide to make a very bad time for everyone. And this is like this acidic, again, narcissistic resentment. This isn't just resentment. This is very much I am entitled to a lot more than it is a narcissistic form of entitlement that grows into this vicious hatred and loathing of everyone and everything beyond yourself. That is a truly dark, deadly, sinful form of rage, and you see it taken out regularly throughout the world. But yes, the mass shootings are an absolute case in point example of this. So this is not to talk about the gun laws at all. I'm going to stay away from that.
I feel like resentment is a little bit where people are stuffing things down and not handling things, though.
And it boils and it bleeds, and while eventually you break somehow. Everything eventually will break out, and damage and death, mayhem and disorder and chaos is going to result because of it. And you will get the more familiar rage, the familiar wrath that boils up from an irrational, well, to call it irrational is to suggest that there is no reasoning behind it, but they built up an entire lifetime of reason to get to this point. It's false reasoning, but it's still reason. And they've steeped in that resentment for so long, there's no stopping them. They have completely nihilistically given up on everything and all traces of any consequences whatsoever. You could say that the sin of wrath is to not care about the consequences of your outburst and the rage that comes out from that, whether that's resentment or just blind chemical wrath and rage that comes out sometimes. You say, "Whereas have too much testosterone," which is indeed a serious condition that a lot of men have. So we all know someone like that whose rage gets the best of them. They regret it, usually. That's the sin of rage. You need anger to live, but rage is unchecked anger with no thought for the consequences of what comes afterwards. It's just bloodlust.
And that's Satan, right?
Yes, that's Satan. Even though the poor devil's advocate really doesn't deserve that. I mean, all attorneys go to hell, but I mean, really? He doesn't really deserve that reputation. He really was just doing his job. Anyway, let's move on to... Yahweh was the one who asked him to kill people. Come on. Let's move on to the next sin, which is the mercurial sin. This one's a bit weird, because it's a bit of a shunt. It is greed.
I was going to say, is it greed?
Because it is the desire to have, consume, to take everything. Jove and Jupiter is like the planet of abundance, and Mercury is the planet of acquisition. And greed, the demon of greed, is Mammon.
He's in the Bible.
Yeah.
Yes, in fact, the entire demonization of him comes from that one line in the Bible, where Jesus says, a man, or anyone, cannot be a servant of God and Mammon, because the word simply means profit. You cannot serve God and profit, or you cannot serve good in humanity and serve yourself at the same time.
Tell it to the mega church pastors.
I would, but they'd probably just be like, hallelujah.
He's good at speaking tongues.
Speak in tongues and tell me, you are full of the devil. I'll be like, well, you might need to define which one. We deal in nuance here. Yes, Mammon. Very interesting etymology. It really just means, it's a Semitic word that means fortune. That's it. In the Goetia, it's the king of the east. It's actually really telling. But in it, it's Ammon, which derives from the Arabic Al-Mimon, the fortunate one. That's just what it means. And Mimon or Mammon just means fortunate. wealthy, prosperous. That's it. That's all it means. That's where it came from. What god or entity could that possibly reflect from history? Is it just simply an etymological trick? Not an entity at all, but just a word? Maybe. Or maybe the Semitic individuals of that era and time, of that time and place, saw the horrific opulence and wealth of what was the Vatican at the time, the cult of Armon. It was basically the church of ancient Egypt. And to say, oh, well, he's the hidden god, surely Amun. But I think we can all see where his power really lies, in the wealth of his priesthood. They owned, at different times, they were more powerful than the pharaoh, easily. During intermediate periods, of which there were 3, yep, they were the rulers of Egypt, basically. And their priesthood were controlled, like, you think about the Vatican, they were way more powerful than the Vatican in comparison to the kings of Europe, even during the Middle Ages, and that was their power over the pharaoh. And so, Amun. But Amun doesn't deserve to be considered just the god of greed. Amun, the hidden one, the god of creation, the spirit, is more akin to something like a pagan holy spirit than he is to this desire, lust for wealth. I think of myself as being Kemetic and an ancient Egyptian in my own religious practice, beyond a lot of the stuff I do for the order. And Amun is very much like Elion, in that he is a transcendent deity. And in fact, what's really kind of ironic about this transformation of him into the demon of greed is that his major tenet was charity. Amun was a god of charity to the poor, which, strangely enough, in order to make yourself pure in the sight of Amun, you had to confess your sins. I can't imagine who else does that. Interesting. Still, you had to confess your sins, you had to give charity to the poor. It was a spirit. Very much seems like the Catholics basically stole him whole cloth for the general outline of their version of God, which is hardly surprising considering most of the Catholic or Christian religion was written in Alexandria. And Amun was one of them, especially Amun-Ra, when he was syncretized as they were wont to do copiously. Amun and Ra together become the hidden deity of all creation. It is almost the hidden monotheism in Egyptian religion. It wasn't monotheism, but it was like a hermetic form of all the gods boil back down to the one divine emanation, which is actually more like Tantra than anything else. It's more like Hinduism, this idea that there is just one force of divine creation, and this radiant utterance, like the Kabbalah, is the emanation. The individual deities are the archetypal, almost half-egoic aspects of the one force of the all. And how do we take this transcendent being of hidden charity and love? And if you look at the prayers for Amun, you'd swear it's just a Catholic prayer. And there's a reason for that. Oh, hands down, debate me in the comments. There is a reason for that. Well, fortune, prosperousness, profit. You could say that this is the sin of the modern age of capitalism, would be the sin of greed. But then again, when discussing something like capitalism or the search for personal profit, which is basically the definition of capitalism, it is the greed in and of itself. Before we take the Gordon Gekko idea of greed is good, what's wrong with taking a little off the top? I mean, I like to use the example of the fact that I'm a massage therapist. If I massage and take away your aches and pains, and I have an agreed upon price upon which you said you would pay. You pay it, I take away your aches and pains. Who loses exactly? This is like a good example of exchange. We are exchanging what we have agreed upon, not what I'm greedy for. But I wanted to care for myself, I want a little bit so that I can be comfortable in life, blah, 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 blah. We all know these arguments. So when does the simple desire to have a profitable exchange become the sin of greed?
I think one way is when you either let it consume you to where you're only going after profit. The other is if there's an exchange and you keep upping the price to where it's far beyond what you're even worth, then it gets...
Price gouging.
Yeah, price gouging. The other thing that I see of greed isn't in just basic buying and trading and business. Usually where I see greed is people almost just devour resources or land or whatever for like the bottom dollar, and then at the end of the day you're causing destruction in your path rather than anything that's beneficial for you or whatever. This is kind of what we see sometimes when it comes to like the globalists, where it's like you see them destroying the planet and you're like, you're so greedy, you're not even going to leave something for your kids' future, let alone the rest of us.
That's the narcissism element, the pride, the ego, the very heart of the sin itself comes through in that, because there's no consideration for the consequences of the acquisition in and of itself. It becomes like a type of lust for things. That's why the sins, you'll notice we continue to go backwards and forwards between the sins, because they feed into each other. You can argue that they are almost like connected in this related fashion.
Yeah, Elemental Valkyrie mentioned a little bit ago, lust could also include bloodlust, because the whole bloody hand thing. Well, yeah, because you need more and more blood from the person you're angry from.
Yes, where you wish to, you're lusting after them. This is another form of greed too. That one could fall easily into multiple different camps, that one, but yes.
Yeah, I think they all marry in the end, kind of like a soup, because you start with greed, but greed goes until a certain point where it becomes pride, because all the rich people, it starts in the game of money or profit, but then and then you go to the game of power.
Yes, well, that's the thing. This is something that a lot of people, and I'm definitely going to teach my daughter this as soon as I can, as soon as she can probably understand and appreciate it. Money is not the point. It's not money. Money is the language of exchange, not the gestures, not the actual things being conveyed. When you see this inflation that we often have, where you print a lot of money, the money means nothing. There's a reason why CEOs and various people can keep increasing the amount of dollar signs that they have, because they hold the levers of value. The difference between value and price needs to be understood. Value is the lever that you push to get what you want. It's the leverage. This is how survival is. This is the dog-eat-dog natural selection, which we've mostly distanced ourselves from in the modern age, but is still very alive and well in the market, so to speak.
I think it's the same. It's just moved onto what the current human situation values. You know what I mean?
Well, there's no difference between value and price. On a good way, you walk into like a thrift shop, and the wonderful stories of people who walk into a thrift shop, they know the value of this weird item. They know it's worth thousands of dollars. They buy it for a few dollars from the thrift shop. Bam! It's like porn stars. The show. Remember the good old Gold and Silver on History Channel. I watched a lot of it. It was fun. It's fun, even if it was contrived. But that's the difference between the language of exchange and the actual exchange of things themselves.
So then, greed, just kind of adding to it, it's not sustainable.
Yes, that's right. It's not sustainable. It erodes everything. There is, again, only consideration for themselves. Again, without getting a little too glib, it's like the accusation that our generations regularly throw at the boomers. They did not consider the results of all of these policies that they put forward. But then how are they going to? They were children too. You know, it's hard to consider based on a fact you are not aware of. You muddle things going forward. It is unfortunately the way it is. Then we pick up the pieces of the previous generations because future generations will pick up the pieces of ours. It tends to just be the unfortunate cycle of it all. But yes, that's greed.
I have too much hope for Gen Alpha.
That's Gen Beta. Sorry to say. We missed out on that by 1 year, and I will never let her live it down.
Boo!
Oh,
And a Scorpio.
Actually, that might be okay. I like Scorpios. I got a lot of Scorpio friends.
very full of energy they are, but they won't let you forget it if you betray them even slightly.
Is she gonna be an October
No, but see, I'm a
Scorpio or
Leo,
November Scorpio?
and we value loyalty, so that usually works out.
31st.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Pretty exciting. Got to see her cute little face today in the ultrasound.
Wow.
It's kind of spooky though, because her mouth was open and it looked kind of terrifying. It's cute.
They were screaming because they know what awaits.
Oh, God.
Yes, woe be unto a child of mine comes out of the womb. How that a beautiful one.
I don't know, that's going to be
All
fun.
the darkness of reality. Well,
I'm trying to wrap my head around like greed as like a mercurial corruption, I guess. And like part of me is like where my brain is going. It's like, okay, like Mercury like can manifest as like Gemini, which is like, or like Virgo. And I'm in my head. I'm trying to find the
Well,
thread.
for us, Mercury. Oh, sorry.
Trump is a Gemini.
I might say
Yes,
even that communication with greed, one withholds. There's no good communication. Withholds the value, and greed, and so that
That's
Mercury
true.
being communication and right understanding between two relationships.
It's commerce though. Like when you have a shop, usually the favorite
Deceptive
planetary
trade,
sphere.
yes.
Yeah, usually the planetary sphere that's a favorite of shops is Mercury because it's buying and selling and marking up.
I've
And
been through the Amway. If anyone knows what Amway is,
Oh.
the old classic American pyramid scheme. Yeah, it's based on. You get into a lot of that. It's based on. Not as a whole. Multi-level marketing and pyramid schemes and things like that. Whatever.
but see, all that can be Mercury too because it's manipulation.
Yes,
You're
trickster,
manipulating
information.
people. Yeah.
Because again, how do you understand the price or the value of something without being able to communicate?
Smooth
exactly what it is?
talking,
Yeah, that's a
smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, smoke and mirrors, smooth talking, con men, they're confidence men, they convince you of things.
It's very
They
Mercury.
Marketing.
are greedy. Con men are I should say, they're almost demons of greed. They just want to take, and they will fast talk, smooth talk, all of these things to convince you to give up your value in exchange for a lie. Yes,
Bias
that's
by
really
your
good.
place
I
in
did not
heaven.
think of that. Excellent. Thank you. That's very good. Yes?
Got Mercury on my finger.
Huh?
Mercury's on my finger, tatted.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah. Well, no, it's just kind of an important planet for me.
That's cool.
it's an important planet. And good, it's an important planet for us all from a hermetic mercurial sense. Yes. Thank you very much, Willow. Well, that's Mammon and Amun, so to speak. The difference between information. You could say that's the connection, the hidden. What is hidden? Divine truth or manipulation for values set for?
It's under, in the deepest of the waters.
Leviathan. All right. Oh, we're live. Okay.
Oh, we're live again.
Leviathan.
You guys missed out a little bit, but we are talking finally about the lunar sin, so to speak, of envy, and the demon Leviathan. What's really strange is that they chose Leviathan, because where's Behemoth? He's there, and in the, I believe the Jewish tradition, there's also a great demon of the air. I think it's a Ziph or something like that. I can't remember. It has its own name. It's like a great rock, in the bird sense, the massive thunderbird of Native American legend, this massive bird. But Leviathan, that's a sea creature. Now, obviously, Leviathan associated with the ocean itself. is associated with the moon. The moon's power to literally rise the entire ocean of Earth. Pretty terrifying, actually, when you think about it. The ability to do that, and they have the audacity to call gravity the weak force. Not from our perspective, it's not. But envy. How is this great dragon of chaos, which is essentially what Leviathan is, envy?
I think, like, to a certain extent, if you see something, like the Christians would call covet something, if you see something and you're like, I kind of want that, I always feel like a normal person, an adult, would be like, how do I work to achieve that? How do I work to get that car, to get that money? When it comes to envy, it seems to eat people from the inside out. And instead of them actually working towards something, it usually ends up in them trying to destroy somebody else.
That seems to be the general argument about why this great devourer of existence is envy. Envy drives the clique economy, like the modern social media economy. I mean, I myself confess, I see friends from university years ago who are wildly more successful than I think I am, based on their social media, and I fall into the trap of thinking, man, I'm really jealous of that person. How dare they succeed and I fail? And that's envy in a nutshell of how dare someone be better than me? It's the ego and pride again.
I think you'd be surprised the other way around, because I lost a friend when I was homeless, and I was already presenting like we were doing well and doing things because I didn't want to tell anyone at the time we were homeless. And somebody who I knew in school, very successful lawyer, came from a really good family, traveled a lot, made a lot of money, now has her, is in her own law firm. She, I was told through friends she was jealous of me, so she blocked me on everything and stuff like that. And I thought that was weird, because I saw her as being successful, and I felt happy for her. But I don't know, maybe she thought what she was doing was boring. I don't know.
Well, it's the lies. I mean, envy is definitely a lie, isn't it?
I think it always lies to you, because when you bring up social media, a lot of people will see not just what they're presenting, but their follower count. And I've looked at people and say, well, they don't have a lot of engagement. I think they paid for their followers. How is that success? You know, maybe you have 2,000 followers, but they're all engaging. You know them personally. It's almost like you have 2,000 friends. You look at somebody else and you're like, how are you gauging success on that? I feel like envy doesn't even know what it envies.
Yeah, it exists in and of itself.
Yeah.
It just wants to consume, and it does not know why. It wants to... I mean, when you analyze envy, it always falls apart under the smallest amount of scrutiny. After all, you have wealthy people who come out and they say, you know, I've been wealthy and I have absolutely everything I want, but still I'm not happy. And it's like, why would you envy that? I mean, you envy the fact that they can order an expensive breakfast. You envy the fact, and it is somewhat enviable, that they can go on a yacht very casually or fly around the world. That is very enviable, to be able to have someone who can just up and leave and enjoy an entire planet of wonderful sights and then come back. Of course, we all would love to be able to do that. But to envy it to the point of loathing, to envy it to the point of wanting to take action, that's when it starts to dissolve things. I mean, envy at its best is a kind of aspiration. You see what you would like to become. You are, on a small level, envious of that aspiration. You want to be that. Without that ambition, what do you have in life exactly? I mean, envy and ambition are linked in that way. But how does ambition then become darkened, parasitic, destructive, when you are overly ambitious, or when you are so resentful against someone who is more successful than you that you destroy and create chaos? One of the things about all of these sins, I did a talk here a while ago on the Dragon of Chaos. It's one of the first talks I think I did about a year ago. And the Dragon of Chaos has 7 heads, because each one of the heads is associated with a planet, and associated basically again with one of these vices and these deadly sins. And Leviathan is that Dragon of Chaos. This seven-headed monster that only wishes to destroy and create chaos. The Christians and monotheists have a different dimension of things that they talk about. Pagans, I would say, pagan morality, and the difference between pagan morality and monotheistic reality is like a Dungeons and Dragons chart. Pagans believe in order versus chaos. Chaos is that which destroys, creates discord, makes things difficult, breaks things down. You know, something like a judgment day would be a true ascension of chaos for a pagan. But for Christians, it isn't about chaos versus order. It's about good versus evil. Then you have to ask the question, what exactly is evil, what exactly is good? And of course, good is whatever they believe in, evil is anything they don't. It might be a straw man, but hit me up in the comments, I don't care. But you have someone like Set, the ancient Egyptian god of which started out as actually being a competitor with Horus in the first and second dynasty. Set and Horus were basically, they were duking it out on a theological level. You actually had kings in the second dynasty and first dynasty of Egypt who used Set, not Horus, to crown their sacred king names, because they were figuring out which one of these war gods was the good guy. Well, Set lost. But he didn't lose that bad until he was completely demonized after the expulsion of the Hyksos, who their god, because Set basically got conflated with their local Baal, who was a storm and thunder god. Storm and thunder is not good in Egypt. Nile good, storm bad. Because mudslides, not good, no bueno. But in the Levant, north of that, storm good. Bring rain, crops grow. It works out good. Not so much in Egypt. So you can see there's sort of like a weird kind of opposite symbiosis. But when they came in, they're like, yeah, Baal good, Set good, Apophis good. We're going to name our kings Apophis. And the Egyptians are like, you motherfuckers. That's bad publicity. And after that, the Egyptians, who had Set being basically on Mars, to him he was like a Mars to them, like a Roman Mars. Not bad, but not good. Evil, yes, but an agent of order. So for a Christian, Set is evil. And to a pagan, yeah, maybe. But he's a force of order. He stands on the bark of Ra and slays the dragon of chaos. It's one of his jobs. He is an agent of order. I believe the phrase was, he's a bastard, but he's our bastard. This is fine. This is the difference. They believe that he is evil. He's a devil. Well, of course, any one of our unfortunate. All of our gods are considered devils to them because it is not their god, ergo it is the devil. Simple. But that is the nature of the dragon of chaos, is that it wishes to consume, and on that point, the Egyptian dragon of chaos exists to want to consume the whole world every day and has to be swatted down every single day. The Ugaritic tradition of Baal slaying Lotan kind of happened once as a story which they tell over and over again. The Egyptian dragon of chaos, ever present. Every evening, Ra has to literally go down into the underworld, be reignited, and slay the dragon of chaos, then be reborn in the morning, shed all of his energy and light, and then die, go into the underworld, and it all happens again every single fucking day. Which says that even the God of the universe struggles to make sure that there's a tomorrow, which is perhaps, in my opinion, is 24. But is to, I think that's perhaps one of the messages that most resonates with me. There is no guarantee of tomorrow. We all get up, we all strive, we all fight, and we don't want an end to this experience, this wonderful universe, because it is and can be wonderful if we all just try to reduce the suffering. Leviathan does not have a good counterpart. He has ancient versions. He has Lotan, Apep, or Apophis. He has, I think, Aresh Kagal. Well, she's the queen of the underworld mostly, but I think she also takes the form of the Dragon of Chaos at various points. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. Excoriate me in the comments, otherwise that's fine. But the Dragon of Chaos has always been the Dragon of Chaos. And envy really is just an agent of discord. It's no reason for it. It's irrational. Ambition is fine. Envy, when ambition oversteps itself, again, to excess, like we said at the outset. So,
Usually people have envy of people that they know, and that's why you see like celebrities or influencers are very famous. Everyone loves them because we don't know them. They are unachievable. And then when your friend makes a business or makes something good, and then your friend, like someone that you know, you're not gonna go there because you're.
it feels like a direct reflection on you, doesn't it? Because you're connected to that person. Why aren't they successful? How did they get successful when you didn't? I mean, you know them. When someone is distant, you barely know them. They might as well be a painting. Their fate unassociated with you beyond story and reputation. But if you know the person, that's different. You know they're real, and you know their success is quite real, and you feel that envy much more acutely when you know that person.
I think too it's because if you come from similar backgrounds, if you went to the same school, grew up in the same area, and then one person is doing good, it's like they feel inadequate.
That sense of
Where-
personal entitlement, you know.
Yeah,
How did they succeed?
yeah.
I didn't succeed. It's that sort of statement, that envious statement at the beginning. Because there's no fucking answer to that question. I mean, it's like, Deus Vult. God willed it. I mean, what do you want? The sky is blue. It happened that way.
I feel like envy is probably the deadly sin that makes the least amount of sense to me, even above sloth, because
You
sloth
see it when
doesn't
it
make
affects
much.
some people. They base their whole reality around being envious and ambitious of other people.
Yeah,
And it's
I'm just like, why do something for yourself? Just get up and do it. Like it doesn't make sense to me.
So it's funny. One of the concepts that I had was typically the moon being related to water, being related to intuition, and this is exactly the opposite. So instead of intuition, you have illusion. One of
that's
the
right, illusion.
myths that I thought about was Narcissus and Echo, and how both of them are dysfunctional characters, and they both break down. And part of the issue here is the fact that, you know, we've talked about methods of like scrying in water and doing things of that nature, doing intuitive work, doing divinatory work to find truth, when instead you see a false reflection of yourself and the other person.
That's right.
And you make an almost complete and absolute alienation. So like the person that you envy, oh, well, they're so happy and they're so successful.
Yeah.
You don't know that.
It's your imagination.
Yeah.
It's a lie. You've spun yourself based on the lunar power of the imagination. Damn straight. Good one. That's really good. I'm stealing that.
That's kind of like the Moon Tarot card is. It's a very negative card.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So instead of following your gut as sort of intuition, you know, driven that way, you follow similarly a reflection, right?
A false image.
A
A
false
false
image,
reflection.
yeah.
Because that's like social media again, where people portray a life they don't even live with those. You have those fucking influencers on a plane that they've just rented for an hour to pretend like they're going somewhere so that you will be envious of them.
There's a studio in downtown, $52 an hour.
Oh my God.
A private jet.
You used to go down
Wow.
it was on special days when you go down to the docks and people would just rent the boats to take pictures of them being on a boat there. This is briefly. But it's also, that's a weird one because these people, they feed on other people's envy.
Yeah.
That's diabolical.
That's very Leviathan.
I don't know. I kind of, you know what though? I appreciate that because I feel like I'm always like trying to not talk about things that I think I'm good. Like I'll go somewhere for my birthday or whatever, and it's not a big deal, but I won't talk about it because I don't want people like fucking looking at me, and I don't want like people's bullshit. And a lot of people do that, either hide they're sick or hide they're doing well or something, you know. Like, I'm not going to walk around with a bunch of expensive clothes if I win the lottery. No one will know. So I like these influencers that come and fake everything. It's almost like they're doing everyone a favor by everyone's looking at them. And they're, why does this person have a flat stomach? It's Photoshop. Why are they on a plane and and they're going crazy over there? And you're just like, okay, I appreciate it.
Someone looks away and the filter goes
Oh yeah, the filter goes off. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Or you see like the distortions like in like the wall behind them.
Oh yeah, they're like, and the wall is also like.
Right.
That's right. I think you've really hit on the nerve.
Nice
It's
job, Joe.
illusion.
Yeah.
It's deception. It's complete fabrication. It's a lie. That
Even-
people chase. It's funny that people who are really envious people, very narcissistic, envious people, are very easy to lead. If you know how to throw breadcrumbs in front of them and make them envy something, you can make them chase after it endlessly. It's a sad condition, and like many of these things, like most pathological conditions, I suspect comes from some deep trauma very early on, which is a sad note to sort of end that on, but it's true.
And I also think the Leviathan thing of being in a very deep ocean, because envy of all of the sins is the one that is most shameful of all. Like you're ashamed if you become aware of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You almost like you want to hide it, kind of.
Yeah,
And
you
that
don't,
feels
you don't
very
even
lunar.
want to acknowledge,
Yeah.
because we all feel that, you know, like.
Yeah.
But that's the one that like it really hurts, like your ego.
Yeah.
What it most reveals the
Yeah.
like the innermost ego. In that regard, if something reveals something
That's
deep
lunar.
inside you, it is lunar. And it also is a useful method of, like lunar, reflecting on yourself. If you hit a nerve, you're near a nerve bundle, and you can follow that back to the source. If you want to chip away at your own ego, find out what you're envious of, follow that back. Why? Why are you envious of that? To help analyze this weakness, because envy is a weakness.
I think if people do that, they could grow from it. But I feel like a lot of times you just see the consumption of it. But yeah, it's funny because some of the other sins people can either justify better or trace it back better, or I feel like get out of it better. Like you have gluttony, you're like, all right, my pants aren't fitting. I think I got to go to the gym. Or, you know, if you're wrath, you're like, of course I was mad. Someone talked shit on my grandma. Like, you know, but like that's the only one where I would have a hard time justifying something that happened outside of you.
Yeah.
Or you can ask
For
for
that.
help. It's easy to ask for help in all of those.
Yeah.
But for envy,
Just stop being envious.
you don't even want to ask for help. Hey, I'm being envious.
It's like,
Yeah.
because if you ask anyone's going to be like, just cease.
Right, like if you're envious, just don't be.
Yeah, don't be, or
I think
do
the
better.
reason it's shameful is because it shows other people that you're not where you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You haven't made it.
It is very much like exposing a wound.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think, perhaps envy itself is an illusion, a bandage illusion, which covers a wound that you possess.
Yeah.
And also, like, I think because I also, even if you don't tell anyone, I feel like people who are really envious, all they feel is their own inadequacy towards something, even if it has nothing to do with the other person.
Well, you wouldn't long for something if you didn't feel you lacked it.
Yeah.
And so they feel a deep lacking in themselves, in their soul. Someone who is, what's the secret to not having any envy is to be content with what you have,
Yeah.
to enjoy the life that you lead right here, right now. Because envy and that kind of ambition is always going to be a lie.
Kate plus Paint says, I think envy is the worst. I feel that energy the most from other people. You do. You see it in their face.
Yes.
I can deal with hate, but envy is far more difficult. See, when it comes to hate, I feel like there's a pretty easy thing to trace back. And because I don't think hate and love are opposite, I feel like if you don't have a little bit of hate in you, you don't really have love, you know, in order to feel that. But envy, you're just like, dude, stop.
Yeah, because there's nothing you can do about it because it's the other person's problem.
Yeah.
Every single one of these sins has a counteracting heavenly virtue. Now, whatever, they like to slap these words on it. But what is the virtue associated and contra to envy. That might reveal something if the document were fucking open. Demon, can you do something about this? Anyway, what were you going to say, Will?
I was going to say, like, with their false image, their illusion, they're sort of lost, perhaps, in the false image, targeting the wrong goal and moving the wrong way. And maybe not a virtue, but a way out of envy is finding a different target, or altogether looking to diversify any targets in a way, if you're talking about movements and goals.
No, you need something to counteract it, because it would just go after a different target. It would be like, oh, I'm envious of that person because they're skinny, but I'm envious of that person because they have money. I feel like it would just devour something. You need like appreciation. You need something in yourself.
It just says kindness.
Well, that makes sense too. Kindness.
Is the virtue. And perhaps that is simply because one of the things that really helped me stop being envious of other people is rather simple. And it was, if they are empathetically connected, kind, loving towards me, and we are shared, animal, humans, their triumphs are my triumphs. Their joys are my joys. Why should I be envious when together we are reveling and having joy in life? It is only when they themselves are narcissistic and evil that I could possibly, therefore, be envious of them. But fuck those guys. I'm not going to be envious of them.
Yeah.
They're terrible. They separate themselves from us through their capriciousness, their excesses, their vices, their evils, their self-centered lifestyles. I'm not going to envy that pitiful, wretched creature. And why should I envy a friend? When, as I say, the rising tide raises all ships. If you can love and be loved, and connect empathetically, and have that reciprocation, and form that tribal family, and those bonds of trusts and brotherhood, sisterhood, family, what's to be envious of?
I think it's kindness to yourself too. You're on a different journey, a different time period in your life, something like that. Be kind to yourself and just do the work and get through it. I think it's,
Grateful. It's,
Yeah.
the advantage of the actual, mechanical advantage to giving thanks. I
Yeah.
mean, even if you, at the end of the evening, you have a meal in front of you, and a lot of the regular tradition to give thanks to God for the meal. It's like, well, I don't know about God. Do you know that someone grew this rice? Do you know that someone slaved over it? And I'm deeply grateful for that energy and that effort. I do know that someone put a lot of effort into getting this onto my plate, whether that's the plumbers and the electricians and the truck drivers and the train drivers and everyone else that made this happen. I'm grateful that they have done absolutely everything that they have. That's one of the things I think is particularly valuable, is to invest in some kind of trade skill at some point in your life so that you can appreciate the struggle.
Worst case scenario, you just say, we all gonna die in it. We all gonna be in the coffin, and it says, or burn.
You can't envy while you're in the coffin.
Yeah.
All draw equal in their final breath, in the eyes of God and the eyes of death. I wrote that myself. I thought I just had that in.
Mic drop.
And of course, then we return to the final sin, but we already discussed it. Pride. We become full circle back to the original sin. The one that caused the whole fall to begin with. The whole metaphor of this discussion. Narcissistic ego. Separation, not only from God, but the rest of everyone else. Narcissism is a separation. A wounded, usually damaged and unfortunate. It's sad when you really think about it. If there's one thing that might armor you against any one of these sins, it's pity. Anyone a good Lord of the Rings family here? Lord of the Rings fan.
Yeah.
In the Lord of the Rings, Frodo asks Gandalf, why didn't Bilbo Baggins kill Gollum when he had the chance? He said it's a real pity that he did not kill Gollum when he had the chance, and Gandalf said, "Indeed, it is a pity. It was pity and mercy that stayed his hand. When you understand where these unfortunate individuals, why they act the way that they do, you can't help but feel pity." It's also the one emotion they cannot stand, by the way.
I think too, though, like pity to me is you got like you have empathy, you have feeling bad, you have oh that sucks that happened to you, something real happened to you, and then you have like pity, and it's right there, one little step that way, it's disgust.
Yes, it is a form of disgust, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
that's probably the reason why they hate it the most is that, and I say they, in regards to narcissism, like real, clinical, serious narcissism. Pity is the worst thing. I mean, it's a terrible thing to receive in general, like pity. What's wrong? Like, to reflect on yourself and to think, what is worthy of me? Pity. It's terrible. It's a terrible blow against ego in general. But they really hate it. It's the one emotion they cannot stand, and the only one they deserved. After all, one of the things that I like to say is that there is the opposite of love is not hate. Hate is a perfectly valuable emotion.
Indifference.
It is.
Or
When
apathy.
Mother Nature no longer loves you, it is not with hatred that she repays that lack of love. It is with apathy, indifference, at best, pity. And this is like a technique. If someone is being narcissistic, and not in general, I have some rules for what I consider to be effective narcissism. It's very difficult. The clinical literature on that is deep, confused, and constantly being debated, probably because there's a bunch of narcissists in their field trying to cover for themselves. But I have a few definitions. One is if their honesty is defined by their convenience. I consider that an alarm bell right there. When they are, I mean, we've all encountered individuals where we would consider to be, there's some more clinically identifiable than others, and inevitably it's covering for a deep trauma that they have faced, and it is indeed quite pitiable. But that is the only emotion that you can give them, and not pity in the sense that you're going to necessarily, you know the phrase, forgive but don't forget. It's like you're not going to put yourself back into that place of vulnerability that allowed those people to inevitably wound you, which is inevitably how we encounter these people in the first place.
I feel like you wish they were different, the same way you're like, wow, I wish that frog that was missing a leg had a leg.
Yes,
no,
as I say, I like to say that the only pity that justified is the kind of pity you pay to a piece of roadkill.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad. But what are you going to do? Keep driving, keep living, keep succeeding, and making sure you are better every single day. Anyway, that's it. That is the end of this discussion on the 7 deadly sins.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you all for tolerating